Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How about you?
Good, I'm doing good. First of all, just I appreciate you doing this.
Oh yeah, of course.
So I figured just to get started, maybe you could just go ahead and like introduce yourself and talk about your process. It's a little awkward, but I figured it might be the best way.
Sure. I'm Megan Carnes. I'm a composer, and my process. Ugh. So usually I ask for like a picture lock cut of the film, and then usually directors will tell me which parts they want music for, that kind of thing.
Right.
And then I just kind of go in, see what the mood of the film is. Usually talk about it with the director too, and then just kind of make stuff up from there. I don't know. I'm really bad at explaining it.
Make stuff up. I think we're all kind of doing that. Uh, it's fun you brought that up. That so you wait for the actual locked picture before you even get started, because that is a question I actually got a lot from a lot of these people. Is when do you actually step in and start?
Yeah, some composers prefer to do it earlier, like start just at least getting ideas down. But yeah, I like to have the actual picture locked cut because a lot of times, as I'm writing something to fit the picture, that's when I actually come up with the melody ideas and that kind of thing. Usually, well, some of the time I'm brought on earlier though, just like so I can be kind of thinking of ideas in my head and that kind of thing. And it is good to know that I have like whatever projects I have coming up, just so I'm not brought on last minute.
Right. That actually kind of Johnny Clyde. We both kind of know him on through Facebook and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He asked, "Do you find it difficult to score a scene that doesn't have any real rhythm to the editing?" And that I found that really interesting.
Yeah, it is kind of harder, although, so a lot of people edit to temp music, and I think it's better to not do that. I know a lot of times that really helps with the timing, but what happens is that people end up falling so in love with their temp music that it allows the composer no freedom of creativity or originality, that kind of thing.
Right.
But getting back to the question, yeah, it is a little harder to score something that's not really edited to a certain rhythm, but it's still possible. I just like kind of mess with the tempo a lot, like have it slow up or slow down and speed up a lot. And maybe add like an extra beat to a measure, that kind of thing. Depending what kind of music you're working with, that can sound weird, but there are ways to do it.
I know for me personally, I do work to temp music for whatever reason. Like it's kind of the only way I know how to work. But
Yeah.
For exactly what you just said, to kind of get that rhythm going, and I do know what you mean about falling in love with temp music, because that is hard to do. And I kind of had that problem. We've worked together. You scored Reprogram. You also corrected my spelling, but but I kind of did that. But you made me forget about it, because that, I mean, and I'm not just saying that because I'm talking to you, but that I think is a sign of a good composer, is someone who can take it, write a completely different piece of music, and you kind of forget. I don't even remember what piece of music I used as a temp track. So, but anyways, it's more of a
Yeah.
compliment and a statement to how good you are. So,
Yeah, thanks. And
yeah.
honestly, most people do edit to temp music, and I usually don't have a problem with it. But sometimes I'll get somebody that's just so in love with the temp music that nothing I write is good enough. Like, the only thing they would be satisfied with is basically that exact piece.
Right.
So I think that's something you have to be careful of.
That actually kind of makes me think of something. I know for me, like I do a lot of editing for different projects, and I kind of get that feeling sometimes where they keep asking for changes on stuff. It just seems like there's no end to it. How do you approach people like that? Or how do you like, hey, look, I've been working this amount of time on it. I'm done. This is it. Or,
I actually have a set number of revisions already written into my contract. So if they want more than 2 revisions, they have to pay me extra. So usually that stops people. But I mean, when you're working on huge studio films, which I have not done, but you can't really do that with them. It's like you're dealing with tons and tons of money, and they can basically do whatever they want at that point. But
Right.
yeah, that's how I avoid that really, because I used to deal with that a lot until I added the revision clause into my contract, and that kind of solved it.
Yeah, that'll. I guess I would do it.
Yeah.
So, I guess I kind of wanted to just ask you, for you, how did you get started in composing? What even drew you to it?
So I started playing violin when I was like 8. That was kind of my first intro to music, I guess. And I always played in orchestras. And then my parents got me a little keyboard when I was in like 6th grade, and I started just kind of making up my own songs on that. And then so when I was in high school, I still played violin and was playing in orchestra, and we played, I think it was like a Star Wars medley. It was some kind of movie music. And I was like, oh man, this is a job that people actually have. Like, I want to do that. Because I was already writing music, and I'm really into films. I love films. So I was like, this is perfect. And it was kind of always one of those like careers that would be really cool, but kind of seemed like,
Yeah.
just a dream that wouldn't actually happen. But then I got to college, and I majored in music, but it was kind of like my for fun major,
Right.
and I had other majors that kept switching. And so then eventually I was like, I don't like doing anything else. I'm just going to go for this composing thing and see if it works out. And I ended up minoring in film and meeting a lot of film students that way, and starting to get some like stuff for my portfolio and that kind of thing. So
Right.
yeah,
That's cool.
it's kind of a long version, but yeah.
um. So, you've always loved film, then? You've been into film?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I didn't really think of it as like a hobby because my parents, rightfully so, didn't want me like in front of a screen all the time. So I
Right.
think they kind of saw like films and video games as kind of like, I don't know, something that wasn't really like a worthwhile hobby, which makes sense. But
Yeah.
it is a hobby for people, like
Oh, trust me, I
definitely.
know. It might be an obsession, I think. But well, that's cool. Do you have a on film? I was thinking about this. Do you have a favorite like composer, film composer?
Yeah, I think Thomas Newman is probably my favorite. Philip Glass is my favorite composer overall, and he also does some film scores. But just specifically film composers, Thomas Newman is probably my favorite.
He's good.
They're both very subtle in their orchestration and compositions. It's not like over the top,
Right.
but it still conveys all the emotion it needs to. And yeah, I think it's great.
Is there a composer? You don't have to answer this. This might be like tearing someone down when we don't have to. But is there like a composer that when people say, "Oh, I love so and so," you're like, "Oh God," like so cliched.
I'm not going to name any specific names. A
Okay.
lot of people know one I don't like, but basically anyone who kind of has that really generic Hollywoody sound right now that's like a lot of loud guitars, although sometimes that's great. Like I love the Mad Max score,
Yeah.
but yeah, just anybody who does something like that's too generic and overdone now, I'm just kind of like, ugh.
Yeah.
And a lot of people kind of have that sound where it's like, dark strings in a minor key and then like guitar over it and that kind of thing. It's just too much a lot of the time, I think.
Yeah. Just over the top.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I'm gonna start looking at some of these other questions. This guy Damien, when I was asking people questions, he's like, "How do I get some? How can a director best work with a composer to find music, and when should they bring a composer on board?" Which you've kind of already answered that. Um, but yeah, how does a director communicate what he or she wants while still giving enough creative freedom to the composer?
I like kind of communicating in moods. I would say don't try to use actual music terms unless you're 100% sure, because I've had like people use the wrong music terms before, and it's better anyways to communicate. I think just giving the general mood. It also really helps if you give me like a sample or two of music that's kind of in the similar like vein, like similar feel of what you're looking for. Um, but yeah, don't worry about using any like fancy terms or anything.
Right. Trying to impress the composer is the wrong
Yeah,
term.
that usually doesn't work out well.
um, Yeah, a lot of these questions honestly kind of just hit the same notes. A lot of people are interested in just knowing like when to bring you on. So that sounds like you've pretty much answered that. So we can just freeform for a little bit.
Okay.
First of all, and again, this isn't because I'm just talking to you. I personally, one of my absolute most important parts when I'm going in to edit as an editor is music. I feel like the drive of a film is kind of like a rhythm, and I think a lot of people don't pay enough respect. I guess I don't know if respect is the right word to, to the music,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Obviously, you probably do, but I just wanted to see what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I agree with that. If you go on YouTube, you can look up like famous movie scenes where people have kind of re-edited them without the music and kind of added the sound effects back in, and it sounds so weird. It's so awkward. It's really funny. Like horror movies without the music are so funny. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like nowadays people are kind of starting to realize more how important music is, I guess, but it's still kind of underappreciated, I think, especially if you like there are directors who I've talked to who will bring me on last minute and be like, "Oh, we forgot the budget for music." I'm
Oh
like, "How?"
man.
Like, it's such an important thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad. It seems like more people are starting to pay attention. Like a lot of people tell me about their favorite film composers and stuff. But it's one of the most important things in a movie, and I think a lot of people don't realize exactly how important it is.
Right. Yeah. Um. Yep. Sorry, I'm really awkward at this. I'm starting to get trying to get comfortable with it. But
Oh yeah, I'm pretty awkward too, so it's all good.
is there anything that you wanted to talk about? I mean, what were you hoping would come from this interview?
I'm trying to think. I think I had ideas, but now I'm like blanking on all of them. Oh, okay. So if you're working with a composer, when you're sending them the video file, it seems like people don't really know what to do when it comes to that. I would say the important thing is make sure that you don't have the temp music in there. A lot of people seem to think that I'd like want it for some reason, but I don't because I want to be able to hear all the dialogue and sound effects over the music I'm writing. And then if you can, make sure you put like a time code on there because that really helps us sync wise and everything.
What are some of your pet peeves, if you have any? I think you might have probably highlighted those, but
Yeah, just like I said, waiting until the last minute to hire a composer, so I'm like rushing to get it done by your festival deadlines or whatever. Like, just I understand that production gets pushed back and that kind of thing, but just make sure you at least have a composer on board pretty early. That being said, I also hate when somebody brings me on super early and then like sends me the script and like asks me to get started from there. And I'm like, no, I really can't do anything yet. Like I can think of ideas, but I can't start anything until I actually have the cut in front of me. You know, I need to be able to see what's going on. The timing of that. And my cat's like outside the door begging.
It's hilarious. And I keep looking over. I told my daughter to stay in the background, like, just watch TV or something. I put her in front of her screen. Don't judge while I'm doing this. And I'm like, just wait till I'm done. So I keep looking over, like, she's not here. Do you have any advice for anyone who would want to get into film composing? Like, because I know, for example, my little brother is a musician and he plays guitar and stuff, and he's starting to lean that way, but he has no idea what it entails, or where to start, where to find client. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. So I guess the two places where I met people getting started were school and Hit Record, actually. Just the internet in general is a great place to meet people. And, you know, I'm not on Hit Record anymore, but it was so great for me for, like, meeting directors to work with and that kind of thing. I would say do work for free for a little bit. I generally am not, like, a big fan of working for free. Like, I think if people can pay, they should. But I understand it's not always possible. But for the first like year or so, like nobody's gonna want to pay you money unless you have like a real demos to show them,
Right.
that kind of thing. So yeah, just meeting filmmakers, just finding somebody who will let you practice on their film. Or what you can even do is just like go on YouTube and find like, or not YouTube, just wherever, and find clips of any big movie or TV show and kind of just take the audio out and add your own score just to like show people an example of what you can do. But yeah, really networking is the biggest thing, I think.
Yeah, that's actually great advice. That's an interesting one. Writing music for other scenes, for other movies and stuff. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I never did that one myself because I knew a lot of filmmakers like student films and that kind of thing, so I didn't need to. But I've
Right.
heard that advice for people who maybe don't live in an area with many filmmakers or are having trouble just meeting people. So,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, were there any other questions or anything? You said it was pretty much people just all asking the same thing.
I think honestly, and I'll just speak for myself. When I worked with you, again, you've already hit all these pretty much. I think I've done every single thing you said don't do. I've done. So,
Oh
I,
no, it's fine.
but I think it's really helpful to know that because just reading these questions alone, I can tell you that a lot of people have no clue what you like, how you work. You know what I mean?
Oh
So,
yeah, I'm sure.
so
And sorry.
no, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Keep in mind that people do work differently, but I think the way I do it is probably pretty common. Um, so yeah.
Yeah. What do you see yourself? What's the future hold for you? I know that sounds really cheesy, but I think we might be able to use something out of there.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get more into video games right now. I haven't worked on a game before, and I think that would be really fun. There's a lot of really cool things happening in the industry, especially with indie games. And Austin, where I live, actually is like a huge market for that. So
Right.
I'm trying to get into that just because I'm a gamer and I think games are awesome. They're like this new art form and a new form of storytelling where you're actually interacting with the story, which I think is so cool.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get into that. I'm also trying to get work on, I guess, bigger films. Like I've worked on some really great films, but it's sad because nobody gets to see them really.
Yeah.
And so my next kind of goal is to start working on things that more people see. And I'm not 100% sure how to go about that, but it seems like as I build my reel and portfolio, I just people trust me more, I guess, because they're like, oh, she's done all this, and here's a sample of what she's done. And so it seems like I'm gradually getting hired for bigger things. So
Right.
hopefully that just kind of continues.
I'm sure it will. I know what you're talking about though, especially with film. It's like either they're made for no money at all, or they're made for hundreds of millions of dollars. There's no in between.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's crazy. I wish there was more of an in between. Like indie films that aren't necessarily huge budget, but also aren't these like micro budget. Not that there's anything wrong with the micro budget films, but it's just sad because a lot of them are so great, but they never really get seen.
right.
You know?
I think too, at least in my opinion, I think indie film is kind of going away as the way we know it. Anyways, I think a lot of that is starting to just pop up on Netflix as web series or like the shows that are like 8 episodes long and stuff like that. I think that kind of is the new indie film, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. But,
yeah, I agree with that. And a lot of composers have said how the industry is kind of changing because of that, and both because of that and because of all the micro budget stuff now, and how easy it is to like get music from libraries or get composers who will work for basically nothing. It's a lot harder to make a living doing it now than it was like 10 or so years ago.
Yeah. I can feel that. I believe that. I don't know what that was. Sorry. I can feel that.
No, it's cool.
I'm terrible at this. I'll never be getting a job as an interviewer. So we don't have to touch on this if you don't want to, but I found this interesting. A few people I follow, artist-wise, have started Patreons. And I noticed you have started one. How's it? Do you want to talk about that? You don't have to if you don't want to.
Yeah, we can talk about it. So I started this Patreon just as like a way to get a little bit of extra income, and I've been wanting to do like some kind of vlog or tutorials or something, but it's like I'm so busy most of the time that it's not really worth it if I'm, this is going to sound bad, but it's not really worth it to do it just for nothing, you know,
Right. No, no, that
just
makes sense.
because kind of like time is money. And
Right. Right.
so I don't know. But so a lot of the time in my spare time when I'm not doing composing, I sometimes do like transcription work. And I was kind of hoping this could replace my transcription work just as some like extra side money. And so I don't know, crowdfunding is kind of weird, and I'm not 100% sure how I feel about it because it kind of feels like, hey, friends, please give me money.
It does make you
But
feel
on the
icky.
other hand, I am like going to be making content and stuff for people, and it's not just a vlog; it's like different things depending on the level. So I'm going to do like song downloads of stuff that isn't available elsewhere. Um, gonna try to make like custom playlists for people just of music that I like, or they can request like a certain mood or something.
That's
And
pretty cool.
then I do this thing where I write people like instrumental theme songs, and then you can pay me for that, or like if you pay me extra, I'll write you like a variation, like different versions. So I did like an orchestral, like kind of war theme for a friend of mine, and then he also paid me a little bit extra to do like an 8-bit version of it as well.
That's
So
really cool.
my thought with my Patreon was that I would do that, and then each month do like a new variation for the person, and that's at like the really high level donors. So yeah, I don't know. I think it would be fun. It hasn't really taken off. I have a couple patrons, which is great. I was expecting like nobody at all, so I'll take what I can get.
That's a
Yeah.
pretty cool idea, actually, especially the specialized theme song. That's really
Thank
cool. Uh, uh, let's see here. Someone just asked a question. Make sure it's not one that we've already heard. I'm sure it is.
you. Okay.
Um, yeah, it's exactly the same. Everyone wants to know the same question. I want to touch on what you said though about the crowdfunding because I'm, as you probably know, I did one a year ago, and yeah, I jumped into it. I'm like, yeah, it's not a big deal. I'll just start this crowdfunding thing, and I'll ask people for money. It is probably the most what's the word I'm looking for? Made me feel like crap. Like just honestly, it just made me feel horrible. And then when it doesn't turn out, you feel like you owe everyone. And then when it
Yeah.
doesn't turn out the way you want it to, man, it really hit me hard. So I can see where you're coming from with that. But I think
Yeah.
with Patreon, it's such a smaller amount, isn't it? It's more like little payments or
Yeah. So I don't think I explained it before, but it's, you can set it up per project or per month. So I did a monthly thing, and basically it's just like, and my lowest amount is $2. So somebody for like $2 a month could support me, and then get access to like tutorials and blogs, that kind of thing. And then the amounts kind of go up. But yeah, it's a monthly donation to just kind of help. And it's for like people who are constantly creating
yeah.
content, basically. So it's just to help them out with like bills, and like I have like software subscriptions for work and that kind of thing. So
That's pretty cool.
thanks. But yeah, I don't know. So whenever anyone else has like a Kickstarter or Patreon or something, I'm like, yeah, good for you. That's awesome. But for myself, it feels weird because it feels like I'm just like soliciting money from people. I'm like, oh God, I don't know if I like this.
I think we're at least I could probably speak for you. I don't think anyone's looking at you weird. We're probably looking at ourselves worse than they are. I sometimes
Yeah.
like I'll talk to someone who like donated money. I'm like, hey man, I'm sorry it didn't turn out the way I said it would. I'm working on it. And they're like, oh, I forgot I even donated any money to that. I'm like, oh, never mind. Forget about it. But
Yeah, totally.
but is there anything else you want to touch on that we didn't?
Hmm. I guess some advice I would have for like younger composers or people who are trying to get into it is, so when I was first getting into it, all my music kind of sounded like a copy of Philip Glass, basically, because he's my favorite. And so it's definitely good to like take influences from people you like, but kind of having your own voice is really important. And I would get confused because when I was first starting out, I would read a lot of articles that were advice for composers, and it would be like, make sure you're like a chameleon and can just compose in all these different genres and stuff. And I actually think it's better to maybe not be able to compose in every genre, but have your own sound, like your own voice. Because I think that's what people hire for. Like, oh, this person sounds like this, and this is the sound I want for my film. So, yeah, being unique and being able to stand out, I think, is more important than being to just like basically be this robot that can spit out any kind of music.
I absolutely agree with that. That goes for all art stuff. I think everyone starts out kind of copying people, and then they
yeah, and you don't really realize you're copying. You're just like, oh, this sounds good, so I'm gonna write this thing that sounds good.
Yeah. Or I really like this thing, so I'm gonna make something kind of like it. So
yeah, exactly. And I don't think it's bad to like take influences or like put in elements of things that inspire you or that you like. Just make sure it's still like your own thing, I guess.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Siri thinks I'm talking to her. All right. So I realized when I was talking for like young composers who want to get into it, I mentioned meeting filmmakers, but a really good source is actually more established composers, especially if there are any living in your area. See if there's a way you can contact them, and I'm sure they'd be happy to meet up for coffee with you. Like, you'd be surprised. I think a lot of people assume that they're like too busy or whatever, but most are really happy to share whatever advice I have. And I've done that kind of a lot. And also I've gotten meeting like through friends in the industry, like directors I've worked with and that kind of thing, who are like, hey, I know this composer, go meet with them. So that's the thing. Another thing is about working with clients, and I think this probably applies in the reverse too. So if you're a composer and you're talking to like a filmmaker or ad agency, game dev, whatever, and you get a weird vibe from them from the get-go, like, oh, this person seems a little off or like a little short or something, short as in like short with you, not short.
He's not tall enough, I'm not working with him.
Yeah. Well, you should trust your gut on that, because every time I've like gotten a weird vibe from someone at the beginning and signed a contract anyways, it's not ended well. Like, I always end up like finishing the job and doing a good job or as best I can, and we end on fine terms, but it's always a nightmare while it's happening. So that's my advice. Trust your gut on clients. And I think that's true of filmmakers too. Like, if you're talking to a composer and are getting a weird vibe from them, it's fine to be like, you know what, I'm going to go with someone else, I think, but thank you.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing.
I think it works across the board, not even with just composers and filmmakers. There's a couple, obviously I'm not going to say any names, but like, you know, someone like me, like I live out in the middle of nowhere, so being able to find anyone to work with, you want to jump on that, like immediately. And a few times I almost do that or have done that, and it has ended horrible. Or I've been like, all right, this probably isn't going to pan out well because this dude is giving me weird vibes, and I just don't want to be in a situation where I have to work with him. So I totally agree with you on that, 100%.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, trust your gut.
Yeah.
It usually knows.
Yeah, it knows what's up.
But, yeah, and then if there's somebody you vibe really well with, jump on that. Like,
yeah.
Because the people who, like, I get along with really well and can consider friends afterwards, that's always, like, where I have the most fun working on their stuff, you know?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Do you ever, this is kind of an odd question, but being a composer, you probably work a lot, I would assume, by yourself at your station or whatever. I don't know what you call it, your room or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you ever just go on a film set? Do you go on them, the ones you're working on?
No. I haven't, actually. I would actually love to visit one because I've never really been on set, but there's really no need for me to be there since I'm in post, and I think they don't want to bother with, like, beating me or whatever.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there's really no reason for a composer to be on set.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's a reason for it. I was just curious if you've ever done it, just to get a vibe.
No, I haven't. Which is sad. I think it would be cool. I'm sure I'll get to someday.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, well, that was good information actually, and I totally agree with that. Was there anything else at all?
If it's a paid job, don't work without a contract because that's a really easy way to get screwed over.
Yeah, that
And
is
you can find contract like templates online really easily if you just search for like film music contract template or something. There are a ton that come up. So
right.
you can like tweak it to your own needs. And you can always check if you know somebody who's like a lawyer who would be willing to check for you, or even just another composer or something who can kind of look at it.
Right.
But yeah, I would say definitely avoid working without a contract. Even if you're working for free, it might be a good idea just to like know where the rights are because you should keep the rights if you're working for free for sure. And I actually keep the rights on almost all my paid stuff too. And I give like a non-exclusive license to use the music for the film and anything related, but it's still me who holds the copyright.
Well, I really appreciate you doing this, and
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I'm
Again,
always sorry. Go
I
ahead.
keep doing it to you. I'm sorry. You go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying, like, I feel like a lot of people like don't know how to work with a composer, and there isn't a lot of information out there. So I'm happy to help in any way I can.
And I really do appreciate it. And again, I'm trying to figure this out. You're the first person I've talked to like this. So if we didn't touch on anything that you wanted to, or you think of something else, just let me know and we can redo this. Or hopefully you'll let me talk to you again if something went wrong. So, but
Yeah, definitely.
well, I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks,
Thanks,
Ryan.
Megan. Bye.